Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today we're diving into something a little bit different, and honestly for me a little bit intimidating: the white scars. This is a scheme I've never actually tried before, and I've always found a little daunting. All that clean white, the crisp red accent, it's a real challenge, and if you're used to a darker or more forgiving colour palette, yeah. But I wanted to give it a shot and see if I could get them to just about tabletop standard, something that looks good on the board without spending dozens of hours per model. So if you've ever felt nervous about tackling the white scars, you're not alone. And hopefully this video will show you it's not as scary as it looks to get it to tabletop standard. So let's get into it. Okay, so I primed my white scar here like we're making an assault marine. And the first step is to take some thinned down Ulthuan grey, and we're going to get that on all of the armour. Now you really do need to thin this down. Being a whitish, well, not white paint, it is very thick in the pot. I've got it on the red palette here to kind of thin that out. As I say, we want 2, maybe even 3 thin coats of this. Just as the key here is keep it thin. I know often when you look at my paint jobs, they don't look that great because I'm terrible at following my own advice, and sometimes my coats will go far too thick, but you know, it's just a failing of me. And what we're going to do is we're going to get this on all over the model, except, you know, the weapons, because I don't think there's any point putting it on there, but we're going to get on everything else. As I said, 2 thin coats at least. And then once I've done that, I will come back and we'll start the next stage of the model. Now that we've established the Ulthuan grey on there, we're going to add some red details. And the reason I'm adding these details now is because they are something that can be painted, shaded, sorry, I should say, together with the armour. So when we do that, so what we'll do is we'll take some Mephiston Red. Now, I kind of find that, I said in other videos, I love the Army Painters range, but I kind of find their reds are a little bit, Don't know what it is. They just don't have really good drop-in replacements for the Citadel reds. So Mephiston Red is still an ideal one for this. And what you want to do is you want to get things like the shoulder pads and any other details you want to be red in here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stick to the to these shoulder pads here, yeah, maybe we'll do a little pattern once we've gotten a bit further on. So what I'll do is I'll go around getting this red, and if you do make any mistakes, just take some. What I would do if I made a mistake at this point, by getting it onto the white where it's not supposed to be, I'd probably take some Agrax white and then some Ulthuan grey on top of that. And the reason we went for Ulthuan grey rather than say white was I think that the Ulthuan grey has a really nice finish to it, and it just adds, and it just gives you a little, somewhere to go. I think with Agrax white as the base, you don't quite have the same places to go. Anyway, let's get on with this, and I'll be back in a minute with the next step. Now, with that white and red established, what we're going to do is we're going to take some Agrax Earthshade, and we're going to do a shade. So we're just going to take this small layer brush, and we'll just get this Agrax Earthshade into all the nooks and crannies. I was kind of thinking doing apothecary white, maybe a bit thinned down, but this is the only time I ever attempted white scars was with this scheme, well, similar to it, back in the day, and I could never quite get it to work, and that's just because I'm a terrible painter. But I think if you've got the time and patience and skill, I think this is going to look maybe that little bit better. Maybe we'll tackle the apothecary, maybe we'll try apothecary white one time, but right now, I'm just going to paint on there. This is going to be a completely different colour anyway, so I don't mind overspilling. If you do overspill a little bit, just get out your Ulthuan grey and and sort of correct that. So it says, well, that's brilliant. Absolutely fantastic. Citadel brushes, wonderful things. Actually, to be fair, they're just easy for me to get a hold of. That's most of my hobby stuff. I prefer the army painter brushes, but lately I don't have anywhere local that sells them right now, and I'm terrible for buying brushes in advance. So we're just going to go around and get all these little nooks and crannies, and then we'll go back and show you what we got. Now, for the next step, I'm going to put on some black Templar contrast paint. I'm going to slip this basically into the bits where you've got your ribbing for that's here. So we've got a couple of little bit, well, you know, your ribbing, wiry type of thing. I think I'm going to pop them here and just sort of, yeah, get that sort of looking. It just adds a very different. I thought about silver, but I think black is more going to be. Although to be fair, I'm thinking maybe Black Legion might have been a better choice. I'm probably gonna have to do 2 coats of this, but Black Legion may have been a better choice, just because it's a bit. Which one is darker? I always forget. But slip that into all the little areas where you've got your sort of exposed undersuit, and we'll kind of go from there. Obviously, these 3D printed models, the back of the backs are a little bit. Don't know why, just the way they're being designed. But I'll go away. I'll get all of this finished. I'll come back, and I think at that point we're going to be starting on a highlighting of the white armor. Okay, now that that's done, I've just spotted a bit that I didn't do, but I'll get that done in a bit. We're going to take some white scar, or you can use another pure white, like say Army Painter's matte white, and we're just going to highlight up all the edges and all the nooks and crannies. Just give that a nice highlight. I mean, obviously a lot of people are going to do better than my highlighting, and my highlighting is the best, but you know what, I know my highlighting isn't the best, but I'll tell you what, it does pass the meter test. So from a good 1.5 meter, they look really good, and I'm happy with that. So as I said, we'll go around, get all these edges done, and then we'll come back and we'll do the next step, which I suspect is going to be getting the metallics on here. You can tell I've been scripted this out, can't you? Maybe I should. So that highlighting done, and we popped a bit of white scar into the eye lens there for a little bit when we start when we do the eye lens color there. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the puts on the metallic. So we're starting with Leadbelcher, and this will be for your weapons and a few little working pieces here and there. Don't think there's much on this model that I was going to put that on. I'm just doing all the weapons so that I don't know why, it just helps me to, if I do all the weapon, and then I don't know, sometimes I like to leave it depending on the scheme, but a lot of the time I will sort of do the casing a color, and I just find that if I start by doing it all metallic, I don't know, it just helps me define it. You know, whatever works for you, eh? Make sure you thin down your paint a little bit. This Leadbelcher is actually a little thick, so I do need to thin this down a bit more. But yeah, it's not going on too badly. So I'll just finish this sword here, and then we'll try, we'll get some other metallics. I've got these little bits on the chest here on the Mark II armor. I think this is present on the new stuff, and we'll sort of get that nice and into the claws of your chain blade there. Okay, so the other metallic we want to do is we want to do a gold. Now, I debated on whether I should do this copper, or I should do it gold, or I should do it sort of, I say gold, like a bright gold, like Retributor armor, or a darker gold, like Balthazar goals. But in the end, I've decided I'm going to go with Retributor armor. I think it just suits them a bit better. So I'm going to do this neck sort of collar thing here, bit trim around the collar there. And I'm going to do this skull here. I thought about doing the skull red, which I think would work perfectly well. But yeah, it's down to personal preference, I guess. But I was sort of almost humming and hawing about making it copper. But again, you've got freedom to do as you wish. Don't have to follow any particular guide slavishly. Because the thing is, the chapters there were so many sort of space marines out there, little expedition forces, that would have had their own little unique styles and stuff. So anyway, I'm going to finish putting the metals on here, and then I'll come back and we'll give them all... Actually, you know what? While we're here, just because we're here, we're going to give the eye lenses a quick... We're going to drop some Frosthart, which is a contrast paint, into the eye lens there. And that's, oh yeah, that looks pretty nice. That stands out really well. Yep, that looks good. Okay, so I'll go and get these metals done, and then we'll be back. Okay, we're very much on the home stretch here, so let's wash our metallics. And the first wash I'm going to put on is Reikland Fleshshade. And as I mentioned in the previous video, I have lots of Reikland Fleshshade from the Stormbringer and Combat Patrol and various other collections. So that explains why I'm using that. Otherwise, go on with Flesh. Really, really good. And I probably would use that, but I've got lots of it. So the next thing we're going to do, sorry to put my arm in the way, I should have got this beforehand. If we're going to do something a little bit, well, actually it's not that much different. It's fine. It's pretty normal these days, actually. We're going to take some contrast medium basilicanium grey. We're going to use some contrast medium and we're going to mix it down 1-to-1. So I've just taken 3 brushfuls of contrast medium, and now I'm adding 3 brushfuls of basilicanium grey. Now you can use this neat if you want a slightly darker look, but honestly, it's great. Basilicanium grey is a great paint. I love it. It's really good on metallics. It's different from Nile oil, and when you so much versatility, because if you can, oh sorry, got it on camera there. If you sort of water it down, as I said, in that 1-to-1 ratio, I think it's a really, really good wash for metals. And if you want to just use it neat, go for it, because it's still awesome. So I'm just going to do this. I've decided I'm gonna have my chainsword is going to be very, very, in terms of its guard. I was thinking gold for it, but I was like, you know what? Actually, I want a very more utilitarian look to it. And yeah, this helps sort of define all the areas, gives it that look. So what I'm going to do is I'll finish. Basically finish there. Is I'm going to go away. We're going to let that dry. It's a bit quicker than a wash, actually, a contrast, I've noticed, but maybe that's just me thinking, but I don't know. Anyway, so we're going to let that dry, and then we're going to come back, and we're going to do the gun casing, highlight the metal, and then I think that'll be it for this guy. Right, while that contrast paint is drying, I just remembered there's one thing that I haven't touched yet, and that is to just highlight the red on the shoulder pads. So if you've done any patterns or anything, or added red in any other place, like made the backpack red, which I've seen quite often, is very cool. I mean, I'm not going to attempt to any patterns, at least not on this armor, but yeah, if you want to get those jaggedy patterns on there, yeah, do it in the Mephiston Red, and then highlight up with your Evil Sun Scarlet, which is a lovely, nice, pure red, great for highlighting. It just makes those shoulder pads stand out nicely. We're just waiting for the contrast of paint. It's mostly dry. It's mostly dried with the sword now, but we just want to wait for it to dry on the gun. So I'll just finish off this highlighting. Then we'll come back when the rest is dry. Okay, the first thing we're going to do now that basilicanium grey is dry, is we're going to take some Corvus Black. We're just going to paint the weapon casing. I like Horus Black for this. It's sort of, I don't know, it's not quite, it's just a nice black. It's not quite as, I don't know, black as black. It's called a bit of a grey-ish. I don't know. I'm not a colour theorist. All I know is it's a nice flat black, and I think it looks great on weapons casings. So we're just going to get that onto this weapon casing here. Oh, bit too much there. And we're just going to pop some on this weapon casing here for the bolt pistol, for this assault marine. Does this weapon casing go all the way down here? Yeah, I think it does. So, on the other side now. So, let this dry. What we're going to do in the meantime is we're going to highlight up all these metals. That was a weird way of saying metals, wasn't it? You know, when you do these type of things, you become very conscious of the things you say. I don't know. Right, so we've got some Stormhost silver here, which I'm going to use to highlight up your metals. I probably won't do all of them, but I'll just sort of like start. So we get the very sharpest edges of them here. And just sort of highlight up those metals. Get these thingamajiggies here, these little ball things. So these are not pro painting techniques, and it's really, really hot, so that I'm just gonna sort of little, almost like dry brushing along these chain blades. I guess that's the way to put it. And okay, so I'll leave that, and what I'll do is I'm just going to grab the gold highlight. So in this case, we're using Liberator Gold. As I said, I vacillated as to what gold, what sort of yellow metal, I guess, to put on there. And I was very, very tempted by a couple others. But if I'm doing a Retributor armor, I'm going to, generally speaking, highlight it Liberator Gold. Although I suppose you could layer it up Kenner's Gold and then maybe... Yeah, that would be actually quite cool. Yeah, but there's lots of different colours that you can use for this. Right, now, seeing as this black has now already gone and dry because it's so hot lately, I'm going to take some Skaven Blight Dinge, and I'm just going to highlight up the black. Now, I did think maybe I should do what's the word I was looking for? A weapon casing that was red, but I thought if you're going to put, you know, markings on your armor, that might be a bit too much red. Plus, to be fair, I think it looks pretty damn serious with the with black weapon casings. So there you go. Now, I have also seen people do, when they've done white scars, do your shoulder pads in gold, or do your shoulder pads in just white. But again, there were so many different companies as Space Marines on various different crusades that there are absolutely lots of different valid reasons why you could do yours in any different way. And I chose to do Mark II armor because it's kind of associated with white scars. You know, it's an armor that basically they had because they were stuck, or they were right at the bleeding edge of the crusade, and they were far away from resupply, so they tended to have a lot of that. Right, I'm going to go away, finish up the metals, and then I'll put the transfers on. So what I'll be doing is I'll be putting some Storm Shield on here just to give it a nice flat service, putting on some transfers, and then basing it. And we'll come back and we'll have a look at the finished product. Here is the finished product. Helmet looks a bit rough, but from a decent tabletop distance, it looks a lot better. I'm quite happy with how this turned out. My first white scar, and yeah, no, not tempted to do an army of these at all. I don't want to do that white all the time. It's very intimidating. I'm sure there are better schemes or other schemes out there. Pete Rees has an excellent one which uses spray cans for the most part. But yeah, hopefully you've gotten some tips for that. And if you do fancy doing any white scars at some point, hopefully this scheme is okay for you. I mean, if you've got any other ideas on how it will be done, I'd love to hear them. Drop it in the comments. It'd be brilliant. Or if you've got any examples of white scars that you've done, I'd love to see them as well. Again, drop links in the comments. I'd love to see them. In the meantime, if you've been enjoying this series, please give us a like, maybe subscribe as well. Ding the bell, all the usual YouTuber stuff. And thanks very much for watching. And we'll catch you next time on Tuesday when we'll be tackling the Space Wolves, the Rout. An army that if you don't get the colour scheme right, you get shouted at a lot.